Hi everyone, this is Molly, and I'm hopping on to do the first mini episode of 2026. Thank you everyone who's been listening for the past year since we launched Heartbeat Narratives. It was January 1st, 2025, so we're 12 months in, and I'm still loving it, and I know a lot of you are regulars. So thank you for taking that intentional pause from your daily life to tap into something that's a slightly different frequency, a break from traditional media. So we're here and we're going to continue sharing these stories with you as we head into this next year. One thing that I'm going to change slightly is I'm going to try to slow down a little bit. I was so excited and eager to start the podcast last year that I was just cranking out episodes, interviewing tons of people. And I realized that I got a little bit burnt out just from the process of setting up interviews and editing and working on the weekends and evenings. And so I kind of realized that the pace may not match what I'm able to manage sustainably. So moving into this first quarter of the year, I'm going to try a bi-weekly schedule again, 2 episodes a month instead of 4. And I'm just going to see how that goes. Maybe I'll miss all of it too much and go back to every week. But there might be some special episodes here and there for holidays or special occasions. So rest assured that there will still be stories to listen to. They just are coming out a little less frequently. Mahalo for giving me that grace to do my best as a producer and host. That kind of goes along with my theme of this year is slowing down, resting, really leaning into that nourishing energy of like what really feeds you mentally, physically, and spiritually. And I'm not great at leaning into that in my day-to-day life because I just love being productive. I think many of us felt this last year where you're pushing, but it only gets you so far. And sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is to just rest. And so we're going to try that out, and I hope that all of you can lean into that as well in whatever way that looks for you in your life. Another thing that I would love to bring up is if you've been enjoying Heartbeat Narratives, I would be so grateful if you took a moment to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, whichever medium you use to listen. It would be incredible to be able to have a little bit more visibility as we head into this next season of Heartbeat Narratives. We also have a listener survey that is on my website, heartbeatnarrativespodcast.com, where you can give feedback and provide insights as to what you would like to see as we move forward. So feel free to do those things, and you can always reach me at podcastingforjoy@gmail.com. So I will hop into the usual roses, thorns, and buds just to give a glimpse into what's been going on lately. I'll kick it off with my rose. This past year, being able to interview so many different people, I didn't realize all of the fun connections that would come after each individual interview. One of the stories that comes to mind recently is, I think this was in December at some point, but I was having kind of a stressful day, wasn't getting a lot done, hitting roadblocks left and right, and I was like, oh my gosh, this energy of the day is just not suiting me. But I received a text message from a friend who was running a conference at the University of Hawaii, and she said that they had all this leftover food from the caterers, and there was so much going on that they didn't have time to distribute all of this food. So they're like, hey, any takers, people that live in the area, come by, pick up some trays. It's yours if you want it. And so I swung by, and she gave me about 12 trays of food with all this incredible roasted veggies, rice, just like yummy home-cooked food that I think people would find very comforting. And then I had this challenge of, okay, how am I going to distribute all of this? Because there's no way that these 12 trays are going to fit in my fridge. And I'm not going to be able to eat all of this on my own. or even with family, friends, and neighbors. So from that moment, I was like, okay, game plan. Maybe this is the moment where my day will shift and I'll be able to be productive and, have this opportunity to pay it forward in a way. So shout out to my friend Kirsten for giving me this gift of how does this work? How can I have this food reach people who might really appreciate it? And about 10 minutes before that, I had been grocery shopping at a small grocer just down the road from the university. And one of our previous guests, Monroe, who is a street musician, I saw him sitting outside and he was playing the flute. And when I drove past, I was like, oh my gosh, there he is. I haven't seen him in months. He's always been really chatty and kind to me and was gracious enough to do an episode on his love of music way, way, way back when I first started the podcast. And so I drove back down and I parked in one of the parking lots and I brought a couple trays down to him. And I was like, hey, Monroe, any chance you want some of this delicious food? And he was really excited because we hadn't connected in a while. And he's like, yeah, bring it down. We'd love to distribute this and make sure it gets to the right people. So I ran back up to the parking lot and brought down maybe 3 or 4 more trays. And he's like, Molly, I got you covered. There's a lot of houseless folks in this area, and I'll make sure that they all get fed tonight. And immediately I just felt this shift of energy of like, okay, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be today. And from there, we still had a few trays left over. So I drove a few more blocks and, just trying to get creative, like, okay, who else is in this area that would be interested in having these huge trays of food? And went to the athletic complex at the university, have some connections over there to some of the teams, and the rest of the food went to student athletes and some graduate students who just happened to be walking around, and it was really nice to just kind of unload and pay it forward in that way. So it just felt like when you open yourself up to saying yes to an opportunity that may feel like work, it may not actually be work, but it might be the best gift of your day to just shift that energy and do something nice for other people. So that's kind of what I'm trying to lean into, is instead of being so self-absorbed and being like, oh my gosh, my day's not going the way I expected, asking, how can I be in service of others, and radiating that focus outwards instead of inwards. Because I think that's sometimes the hardest thing to do when you're in a routine, you're used to doing the same thing over and over again every day, but stepping outside of that comfort zone and just saying, who can I serve today? That's really what I want to focus on in 2026. So moving into my thorn, I think a lot of us can relate to this, but being overwhelmed by everything that's in the news, the dehumanization of everyday people that are in our lives, in our families, in our communities. And I feel, even though that this podcast isn't focused on current events necessarily, I do think it's important to take that time to pause and think about what are the values that are driving our lives and our decisions, and reflect, really, really reflect on how we are living our lives as individuals and how that collective movement of whatever it is that's important to our communities gets prioritized and acted upon. And so one thing that I often come back to is a quote by Queen Lili'uokalani, and I wanted to share it with all of you just as a way to give us this brief moment of sitting back and just leaning into the wisdom that our kupuna, our elders, are continuously sharing with us today. So her quote is, "I could not turn back the time for political change, but there is still time to save our heritage. You must remember never to cease to act because you fear you may fail. The way to lose any earthly kingdom is to be inflexible, intolerant, and prejudicial. Another way is to be too flexible, tolerant of too many wrongs, and without judgment at all. It is a razor's edge. It is the width of a blade of pili grass. To gain the kingdom of heaven is to hear what is not said, to see what cannot be seen, and to know the unknowable. That is Aloha. All things in this world are two. In heaven there is but one. And I like to come back to this quote because it's very grounding in the sense that in our modern day world, it seems like there's always two sides, two very strongly opposing sides, whether it's political or personal. But when you really look at things, there is one story that encompasses everything that is happening. And how do we tell that story? The story that sees all sides and that connects all of us. Telling the stories that transcend the binary. Stories that ground us and connect us rather than divide us. So I think with Heartbeat Narratives, to me, joy is that connecting bridge that leads us back to each other rather than divides us from one another. And so leaning on this Hawaiian knowledge of what is heaven's perspective, what is that one perspective that is truth, I think is such a beautiful way to stay grounded amidst the division. And so for all of you who are very empathetic people and feeling the weight of the world, just know that you don't have to carry it all alone and that one day at a time is all you have to take on. And lastly, I wanted to go into my bud, something that is growing and blossoming. And given the heaviness of everything that's been going on, I decided that one of my words of 2026 is just going to be dance. Leaning into the fun, listening to music, expressing, moving the body, and just prioritizing dancing with my friends. I know that sounds lighthearted and childish, but sometimes when you're having a difficult day and you hear a song, say it's one of your favorite songs, has a good beat, has really good lyrics, it can shift your energy within 15 seconds. And I found that this morning when I was on my morning walk. I kind of woke up and had a meeting right away and didn't realize that that would set the tone for a little bit of like a supercharged high energy morning that I wasn't totally awake for yet. And so by the time I went on my walk, I was like, okay, I need to somehow step out of this frequency and into a higher frequency. And normally I listen to like meditations or podcasts on my walk. But today I decided, nope, I'm just going to listen to music and listen to a song that I heard the other night when I went to a line dancing event on the North Shore of Oahu. I'm not usually a line dancer. I was gifted some cowboy boots for Christmas and I really wanted to wear them. And a friend of mine told me that there's line dancing at one of the ranches up on the North Shore. So a few of us went line dancing on Saturday. And they played a version of Ed Sheeran's Shivers. And for some reason, something about that song just totally shifted my mood. I was able to go from feeling a little bit rigid and tired and overwhelmed from the weekend to just being like, you know what? I'm here. I love dancing. There's all these other people who are in a great mood. I can lean into that as well. So this morning on my walk, I replayed Shivers and just kind of enjoyed it. I felt a lot more grounded and just a bit more uplifted. Even though it could be temporary, it definitely helped. So whatever that thing is that you need to bring that lighthearted joy back into your day, definitely go for it this year. Sometimes we take ourselves way too seriously, and I think just having aloha and love for ourselves and doing that daily self-care is the best we can do in that moment. So yeah, we're just gonna dance a little bit this year and have fun and listen to music and prioritize that. I want to again thank all of you for listening. The next few weeks into February and March, We're going to have some really interesting conversations that touch on not only joy, but also grief and privilege and identity, and how all of those things can feed into our happiness. But we really have to acknowledge the full spectrum of human emotion in order to get to those peaks of joy. I'm grateful to all of you. I hope you're having a beautiful January so far and look forward to connecting this year. Aloha.